Hey friends, happy Sunday and welcome back to another week of What's for Dinner. If you're new here, hello and welcome. I am Taylor. I'm a stay-at-home wife and mom, and I share What's for Dinner videos just like this every Sunday to share with you some new meal ideas and to motivate you to cook more for your family. I try at least 3 new recipes a week because I like to switch it up in the kitchen because it makes it more fun for me and it makes the videos more interesting for y'all. But trying new things also just motivates me to actually get in the kitchen and cook versus cooking the same things over and over again. So I switch it up to make things interesting. If you like these kinds of videos, I hope you will subscribe down below. Today I have quite a few good recipes coming up, but I also wanted to mention I shared a Thanksgiving sides video earlier this week. It was on Friday if you missed it, and some of the sides that we had with dinner this week that you'll be seeing, you won't actually see me make in this video. So if you want to see me make those, go back and check that out. It will be linked in the description box. Friday night we had a ham and cheese casserole, so I had some diced ham in the fridge that I wanted to use, so I was trying to come up with a new way to use it, so I came up with this little ham and cheese casserole. I'm starting off by melting 6 tablespoons of butter, and when that's completely melted, I'm going to whisk in 6 tablespoons of flour, and then just let that cook for 2 to 3 minutes. Then I added in 5 cups of milk. Then I added in some dry mustard, some paprika, some salt and pepper, and then I just let that simmer over a medium-low heat for about 10 to 12 minutes. Get it nice and warm, and then it's going to thicken up. And you'll know it's thick enough when it coats the back of a spoon. While that was doing its thing, I had some salted water coming to a boil so I could cook up 1 pound of pasta. I chose to do some bow ties, but you could really do any pasta you want. And you just want to cook that until it's al dente. Once the sauce is thick enough, I like to taste it and see if I need to add any more seasoning, and I felt like it needed some more salt and pepper, so I added that. You always want to taste your sauce for seasoning just to double check it. And then I just mix that together really well, and then we're ready to start assembling our casserole. So in a 9 by 13 inch casserole dish, I am adding in half of my pasta, and then I'm going to add in half of the sauce, and then I'm going to top that with some diced ham. I'm just using some little cubed or diced ham. I can't remember what it's called, but it was from Kroger, and I bought it on markdown and had it in my freezer. So I'm adding that, and then I'm adding in half of an 8-ounce block of shredded Sharp Cheddar cheese, and then I'm going to repeat that. And then I baked this in the oven at 350 degrees for 35 minutes, and this is what it came out looking like. Super cheesy and browned and just delicious. This was great. This would be great if you make ham for Thanksgiving and you have leftovers. You could use your leftovers in this. That's what I plan on doing because we always have leftover ham. So I will definitely be saving this recipe to use for leftovers in the future. But we just had a salad with it for those of us that like salad, and we all absolutely love this dinner. Saturday night we had some sheet pan pork chops and potatoes with some ranch seasoning on there. So I'm just starting off with some big russet potatoes, and I'm going to cube those up into equal sized pieces. Then I've got my cubed up potatoes in a bowl, and to them I'm adding some olive oil, some Tony's Creole seasoning, and then half of a package of ranch seasoning. And then I'm going to use the other half of the package on the pork chops. I toss those together really well, make sure everything is nice and coated with all of the seasoning, and then I'm going to dump those potatoes on a parchment paper lined sheet pan, spreading them out so no things like stacked on top of each other. And I'm going to use 2 sheet pans for this. I'm going to use a smaller one for my pork chops just so I can spread those potatoes out more evenly. And then the potatoes went in the oven on 425 for about 35 minutes, and I did toss them halfway through. Now for my pork chops, I've got 6 pretty thin boneless pork chops here, and I'm brushing both sides with some olive oil, and then I'm going to sprinkle on some of that same seasoning, the Tony's Creole, and then the ranch seasoning packet. I'm going to do that for both sides. And then these went in the oven on 425, but these only went in for about 25 minutes. But it's going to depend on the thickness of your meat. If you're using thicker pork chops, it's going to take longer. Thinner pork chops won't take as long. You just want to use a meat thermometer and check and make sure they are fully cooked. So to go with our pork chops and potatoes, we just had some green beans and some applesauce, and then we had like ketchup and hot sauce to dip our potatoes in. And you'll see me make pork chops and potatoes, like sheet pan dinners, very often. I use various different seasonings, but it's one of my favorite things to make because it's quick and easy. Sunday night I made a favorite, and that is bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs. I love to do a whole chicken, but a whole chicken is just a lot more work, so chicken thighs are like the next best thing. You get nice crispy skin and like nice good dark meat. So I'm starting off by seasoning up my chicken thighs. I've got some olive oil in the bowl with my chicken thighs, and then salt, paprika, pepper, garlic powder, oregano, and onion powder. And I just make sure to get those chicken thighs coated really well with all of the seasoning. And then I get them on my air fryer basket, and I do the skin side down for the first half of the cooking, and then I will flip them over halfway through, or a little bit more than halfway through, and then put the skin side up so the skin can get nice and crispy. So usually I do it on about 375 for like 15 minutes, and then flip it over and continue to cook it for anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes, just until your chicken reaches the proper internal temperature. This night I was working on some of those Thanksgiving sides that I mentioned. I made some glazed carrots and some stuffing in the crock pot. It's like doctored up box stovetop stuffing. So I was like, my mind was consumed with those things. I forgot to even like record a picture of our finished dinner, like our plates. And I didn't even get a picture of it. Usually I'm really good and like on top of it, but I was so like trying to work on 2 videos at once kind of, so I didn't get that done. But as I mentioned before, if you want to see me make the sides, go ahead and check out that link in the description box for the recipe for the carrots and the stuffing. Monday night I made a brand new recipe. This is called meatball stone soup. I was like inspired by a recipe in my Betty Crocker More Slow Cooker Recipes cookbook, but I did not follow it like at all. I was just kind of loosely inspired by it. So I'm starting off by putting some frozen meatballs in the bottom of my slow cooker, just enough to coat the bottom of the crock pot. And then I'm going in with some cut up potatoes, about a cup of potatoes, about a half a cup of diced onion, and then about a half a cup of carrots and a half a cup of chopped up celery. And then I'm adding in 2 cans of diced tomatoes with the Italian seasoning. And then it told you to add in 2 cans of beef broth, but I made enough beef broth to equal that, and it didn't look like enough liquid, so you're going to see me add more liquid later. I added in some Italian seasoning, some garlic powder, some salt and pepper, some minced garlic, And then I added in 2 more cups of water along with a big, huge tablespoon of some of that beef bouillon base. It's kind of like the better than bouillon. It's not the powder kind. It's like I don't know how to describe the texture of it, but it dissolves in the water, like in the broth later. But I just did a big tablespoon of that to give it some more flavor since I added just plain water instead of broth. I did not make my broth with that stuff. I made the broth with the Knorr beef bouillon powder stuff. But then I just put the lid on this and let it cook on low for like 8 hours. And then this is what it looked like when it was done. The meatballs were nice and tender. Everything kind of rose to the top, so it looked like there was more in it. But there was still like a lot of just like broth at the bottom. And it turned out perfect. Like the exact amount of broth that I wanted, like ratioed broth to stuff, and it was delicious, very good. We topped it with some Parmesan cheese and had some garlic bread with it, and I highly recommend trying this. I will definitely be making this one again. Tuesday night we had Sloppy Joes and mac and cheese. The mac and cheese is in that Thanksgiving sides video, so if you want to see that, again, it is linked down below. And the Sloppy Joe recipe we use is always the same. I always use the Pioneer Woman one. It is our favorite, but I do cut it in half because it does make a lot of food and we don't want to eat Sloppy Joes for like 3 days in a row. So I always cut it in half, and that's the perfect amount for my family, plus some leftovers for Andy to take for lunch the next day. So you just start off by browning some ground beef. I didn't feel like messing with onion this night, so I just used some of the Trader Joe's onion salt instead of onion, and then added in some salt and pepper, dry mustard. You do some minced garlic, some chili powder, brown sugar, ketchup, water, Worcestershire sauce, a little bit of hot sauce, and some tomato paste. And you just mix that all around really well and then let it simmer, and it'll thicken up really nicely. I usually let it simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes on a medium-low heat. All the measurements that I use for this recipe will be listed out down below, as well as the original Pioneer Woman recipe. And then we just served it on top of some brioche buns. The kids like to have a slice of American cheese on theirs, but I just like plain old Sloppy Joes. And then, of course, we had our baked mac and cheese on the side. Wednesday night, we tried a new recipe called chicken enchilada rice casserole. So I did a lot of the prep work for this in my Instant Pot, but this is going to be baked in the oven. So I did my rice in the Instant Pot. This just because that's how I like to make white rice, or pretty much any rice. So if you like to cook it on the stove, you can do that. But the instructions for doing rice in the Instant Pot are equal parts rice, water. I do a splash of vinegar and a splash of oil, and then cook it for 5 minutes and let it do a natural release for as long as it usually takes. I didn't do as long this time. I just let it do it for like 6 minutes and it was already done. But usually I let it sit for like 15 before actually doing it. But since I knew I was going to be baking it in the oven, I just did a little bit shorter of a release and then did a quick release for the rest of the steam. And then when that was done, I added some chicken breast into my Instant Pot. It's a good thing I have 2 Instant Pot inserts. Makes doing things like this really easy. But my chicken was still semi-frozen, so I got it in my Instant Pot with a cup of water and some taco seasoning, and then got the lid on there. And online it said like 13 minutes to cook frozen chicken breast, so that's what I did. And then it did a natural release, which took about 7 minutes. And then I took the lid off and took this and cut it up and set it to the side for adding to our casserole. Now, I mixed everything for the casserole in the Instant Pot that I cooked the rice in. So to my rice, I am adding 2 cans of red enchilada sauce, 20-ounce cans. And then I added 1 10-ounce can of corn. This is some Mexi corn that I found at Aldi. And then I'm adding in a 16-ounce can of refried beans. And then I decided to start stirring that up, kind of breaking up those beans. Then I added in my chicken and some salt and pepper and some cumin. The recipe didn't really have you adding any seasoning besides some pepper, but I thought it needed some salt, and then I also thought some cumin would be a nice addition to it as well. And then I also added in some of my cheese. I'm going to be using some more cheese to top the top of the casserole, but I added in probably about a cup to a cup and a half inside here with the rice mixture. And then I transferred this to a 9 by 13 inch baking dish, spread it out nice and evenly. As I said, topped it with some more shredded cheese. I'm using some Mexican style shredded cheese from Aldi. And then I put this in the oven on 350 for about 25 minutes. And here's what that looked like when it was done. This was great. We all loved it. I mean, I don't think we've ever had a bad Mexican rice casserole thing. They're all usually good. We topped this one with some cilantro, and then the leftovers the next day we actually rolled up in a burrito with some Taco Bell sauce, and that was great. It made really great burritos as leftovers. I will definitely make this recipe again. And finally, the last meal of the week was some chicken noodle soup made in the Instant Pot. I have shared this recipe quite a few times here on my channel. When I went to make it, I thought I made it for the first time last year, but I found out that I made it for the first time 2 years ago. So I've been making the soup for 2 years. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but apparently it has. So it has its own separate recipe video that I will link down below for you guys. It's our favorite chicken noodle soup, and it's really easy to make because it's made in the Instant Pot. But that is going to be it for this week's What's for Dinner. I hope that y'all got some new meal ideas or some things to try. I hope y'all have a good week, and I will see y'all on the next one. Bye.